Welcome everyone to another episode of Bruvcast. This week for our 65th episode, we wanted to share with you something different. This is a recording that we did when we guest appearanced on the Middle Fingers Up podcast. Shout out to Kiran. It was great to actually be a guest and be the one that was in the seat and being asked the questions for once. So we really wanted to share this with you. It was a lot earlier in our journey, so it might be interesting just to hear how we were thinking about things back then. And we really hope you enjoy it. It's a opportunity to kind of understand a little bit more about Bruvcast, what led to it, our friendship, and everything and anything in between. Please check out Middle Fingers Up on all available podcast platforms. And we will see you same time next week.
Welcome to Middle Fingers Up, the show where we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher. I'm your host, Kiran McKay. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Raj and Mick, two amazingly brilliant podcasters hailing from London. You may have come across their show, the Bruvcast. I find a delightful podcast led by two South Asian guys who, when you listen to them, it's really cool because they break down the unique experiences of growing up between the Western and Eastern cultures, which I kind of talk about my experiences on this show too. And not only do they bring insight, but also a healthy dose of humor as they dissect the whys and hows of our upbringings and the impact on our lives and relationships. So it's really cool to listen in on some of their cultural examples and asking, why do we do these things? And it's done in a really light, gentle way, which I think invites lots of different kinds of conversations. So if you're interested, which I don't know why you wouldn't be, you don't want to miss their episodes. They drop every Thursday. So for more laughs and thought-provoking content, be sure to follow them on Instagram as well at Bruvcast Pod. I'll have all that put up at the end. Okay, so without further ado, let's welcome Raj and Mick. Hello, guys. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
Hey, Kiran.
You just got my thanks for being here, my super girly, excited voice, but it's nice to have you both here. So thanks for being here.
No, thank you for having us. Really appreciate it. How to get us on, and we love your energy already.
Oh, okay. Because I feel like Raj has been just staring at me like, who is this chick? Like his super serious face. Like, Mick, you came in with this beautiful little smile. Your teeth are perfect. Raj shows up and he's just got this beard and this hat and and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say to this. Hi, hello. And I'm like, so. Yeah,
I felt the same way the first time I met Raj too.
It's true. That is my game face, and then slowly I'll open up. But Mick's just got the beaming smile. So
yeah, he does, right?
I normally let him smile for me.
It's like the Indian Prince Charming smile.
Yes.
Right?
I'm blushing now.
If your wife's anything like my husband is, or I'm the other, it's please stop. They're going to have a big ego, right? So your wife's probably stop it. But I just, that's just how I felt. So I appreciate you got good vibes from me over here because sometimes it can be a little much too. So I don't feel like that's a problem for you because I listened to some of your episodes. You guys are seriously hilarious. You have great chemistry. So you have to tell me, how do you know each other? I believe you went to university together, but I don't know if you guys met in university because I thought it was really cute when one of you was talking about how the other has to keep, keep the other one organized. So who was that?
So we met at university purely by chance.
Oh, you did meet.
Primarily, the reason that it happened was because me and another friend, Situl, who also comes on our podcast, we desperately wanted to have a housemate to live out with us. Oh. We wanted to move out. We needed a housemate, and we were asking around, and we knew a friend, and his friend was Mick. And he was basically saying to us, look, I know this guy, and we'd met Mick maybe once, and we must have gone out for drinks one time with him. And he was like, he's looking for someone. Mick wasn't even in the country at the time.
Oh.
So me and Situl, I think we went to his parents' house and basically said, we want to move out with Mick. And we basically had a pitch of where we were going to stay, the accommodation, how much it was going to cost. And then his mom, I think your mom rang you and were like, Mick, these guys want to move in with you. Well, you were in America, right?
Is that where you were?
Yeah, I was on a boys' trip, and Raj obviously Raj went with Sittl's dad to my house, and put this pitch together, and then yeah, the rest is history. I think when I got back, my parents were like, "Who are these guys?" I was like, "Oh, they're just friends of a friend." And we've got this one friend, Mittel, who's really, he's like the glue, like that connects all of us in that sense, right?
Aww.
And when you mention Mittel's name, he's like the good Indian boy, you know, the good
the one
kid
that
who
all the
does what his
parents
mom
like.
says. Exactly. So once I dropped that name, they were like, "Oh yeah," they were game. They were like, "Okay, fine." And then we went to, I think you and Sittle booked a viewing of the property, right? And I walked in there with my parents, and you see Raj and Sittle in the corner, just like, "Do you think he likes it? What do you think?" And then and then they approached me and said, "What do you think? What do you think?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I had no idea what I was saying yes to. I knew that I just wanted to get out of living at home, if that makes sense. Look, love my parents, bless them, but I needed to break free, and this was the only option, right?
Well, I love that. It's very clear for any other like minority, or as I learned, global majority folks listening, because if people are like, why would you have to go and present a whole game plan to your parents to move out, right? But usually like our white friends don't have that. It's sort of expected. It's part of launching your kid. And our parents seem to want to hold on to us for like not the best reasons, because then we don't know how to function when they expect us to get married, right? We're like, I don't know how to grow up and be an adult. So it's funny that just the way you presented it, Roger, was like, yeah, this is totally you moving out for the first time.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then we lived together not only that year, the following year, and then also the final year of university. Mick and I lived together with two others. So we've spent many years, many experiences, and I think the chemistry that comes off on the podcast is a function of us just basically being just so open and transparent with each other about everything under the sun. I think personally, for me, I think our relationship was galvanized in that first year of university. The flat that we lived in was in North London, and it was a flat which did not have internet. This was, early 2000s, right? So I'm showing my age now, right? So early 2000s, and we didn't have anything for entertainment. So I remember a lot of the times we would just talk to each other.
Oh my gosh,
and
what
we would
does
just
that
be
even?
talking and it's crazy, right? Like that's all we would do, and it was like talking and cracking jokes and having laughs and it was a crazy opportunity just to kind of get to know one another, because again, remember, we knew very little about each other. So I think that set everything off on the right path.
Well, it makes sense then. I mean, I'm going to ask in a little bit about where your name and all that came from, but I can see you kind of walking towards that, this community, building a strong, healthy community for a bunch of dudes, bunch of Bruvs, right? Am I like cool now? Can I say that?
Exactly.
Right? Like just because from our experience growing up, and I think this is where like universally all cultures can relate with men and men's health and mental health, and just those strong expectations from every culture towards men and how you're supposed to be. And so being able to be in university and have that time and space to be in your early 20s, and you don't even know yourself. So you're getting to know yourself, I would imagine, through getting to know your buddies. And I think that's a great way to sort of build your 20s, to have that kind of connection. It's hard as you get older to find it or think that it's important. So I think that's cool. I'm going to jump in and ask you guys let's do our middle fingers segment, because I feel like I can keep asking you, and then we're going to get into all the other questions. And I have forgotten to do it before, so now I'm like always anxious. So middle fingers up. So who wants to go first? I'm curious about what you guys brought today.
Shall I go first, Mick, or do you want to go first?
Like, do I have to pick like the teacher at school?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll go first.
All right. Raj is up.
All right. Okay. So my middle finger is on expectation. And I mean every sense of the word expectation. So expectation by yourself, for yourself, expectation by your family, expectation by society, by the Indian community. Because a lot of the reason why we've created this podcast was that weight of expectation has and does take a toll on people, right? On all of us. I think for me, it was something that I realized I had And it was only when I started to kind of like verbalize it and talk through it with Mick, who is essentially my counselor, and basically kind of saying, look, this is what I'm going through, or this is what is happening. You know, is this normal? And it just made me realize in those conversations that it isn't unique, right? There are things that we all go through, and a lot of it is because of the expectations that are placed upon us. And we talk a lot about this on our podcast. Like a lot of our episodes relate to different aspects of those expectations, right? And expectations on yourselves is another massive part, right? Like for us to kick off this podcast while we're in full-time jobs, we have families. I've just literally had a kid whilst this podcast has started. Yeah. You know, if I think to myself personally what my expectations are before even getting into this, might be, well, this is probably not the best time to take something like this on. And I've been like, I'm very thankful for my wife Gagan, so shout out to her, because she's been able to kind of like really help support this, and it also give me the encouragement. I think she probably listens to every episode even before Mick sometimes gets them, right? Because when I do the first cut of the edit, she's there. So just quick shout out to her on that one.
And sorry, what is your wife's name?
Gagan.
You did say Gagan. Okay, yeah, shout out to Gagan. That's amazing to have that support.
Yeah. So I think that the expectation piece comes also from society and culture. And we have, I think one of our most watched clips on Instagram is a clip from one of the episodes where we're talking about how you're asked by Indian aunties at weddings, when are you getting married? And then once you've got married, it's like, well, when are you having kids?
Like literally at your reception. Like literally exactly. They're like, oh, now are you having kids?
Yeah. So
it's always the aunties, the naughty aunties.
Always. Yeah. Why is that?
Yeah, I know. I don't know, man. I'm an auntie too. I'm a mussy, and I don't know. I'm not into that. But you know, we're next generation. It's just, I don't know. There needs to be like a reality series with aunties, I think. The real aunties of the world, you know, like Real Housewives or whatever. Like there needs to be something.
You know what? That's probably be a good idea.
Let's do it. Let's trademark this. No one steal it from us.
I think it's all those Indian programs they watch, right?
Oh, the dramatics, right? But sorry to cut you off. Like, you're right. Like, I really appreciate what you're talking about in terms of expectations. And I think part of that too is, and you kind of said it too, like, we also put that on us as well, because it does get to a point as we become adults where we have choice. And sometimes it doesn't feel like choice, especially if we go back to how we were brought up. And I'm a big believer of today, all of who I am, I have to keep going back to that inner child, because there's lots of things we miss, lots of things I have to go back and do. But a lot of our upbringing has to do with these expectations. And some of them aren't bad. It's just sometimes I think we had these expectations in our life and they were serving us. And then we get to this place where they're not serving us anymore. And it's becoming harder and harder to fulfill. What are you as a new dad, and you and your wife as a new family? Like, what are the expectations of how you're supposed to be as a family today in comparison to however many years ago, right? You're supposed to do it all.
Yeah. You know? It is crazy. And I think having a space where we can openly talk about those things through the podcast has been very refreshing. And also just hearing the comments that we're getting about it, because that was the main motivator of it was, and we can definitely talk more about this, was just get more people to talk about, you know, what's going on with them. Yeah.
The more you're talking, the less you're acting it out, right? The less we see in addictions, violence, all that. And I love that, because many ways we're doing the same thing, but in our own little way. And I, like I said earlier too, like to have two South Asian dudes getting out there and role modeling how you can be vulnerable. I think that's friggin' amazing, because you're not supposed to, right? So you're just already thinking that way and doing that, I think is a good start. And somebody wise told me that we have to stop expecting the past, the people above us, our elders, to change. And we have to really start looking at the future and your kids and the younger generations on, you know, like helping them navigate some of these things that we just didn't get the opportunity to. So
I think there's also this idea of understanding and having empathy with that generation, because there are reasons why they do and said the things that they say, right? And a lot of this is down to the fact that they were immigrants and they made big choices and took big risks to leave everything that they had and start up everything from new, right? So that carries a lot of weight. And then if you're taking this massive risk, you want your children to really capitalize on that.
Yeah.
So it's understandable why some of those things happen, but I completely get your point 100%. Like, I think it's on us now to kind of redefine what that is now going to be for our next generation of kids.
And I feel like you can do that. You can move forward in the way you're saying when you do exactly what you say, which is, in many ways, I'm hearing you say forgiving our parents and their generation. You know, many people that I've spoken to that sort of come from the same upbringing as us would say, like, they had it way worse, man. You know, like we had the time to think about racism when we were experiencing it, where our families, like, none of that was like, they had this big wall. They couldn't not show up at work because somebody said what they said, right? The human rights wasn't doing the thing that can for us now. So I think you're right. I think honoring and accepting and maybe even forgiving some of the things that we went through to then be able to handle and move forward with our kids and whatever, right? So I hit my 40s a couple years ago, and I think that was a big life changing for, like, I don't know if you guys are close to that or not, but it just is kind of like the second act to, you know, people are always like, oh, the midlife crisis. And I'm like, fuck, it's not a midlife crisis, man. I think you just realize, oh, time's ticking now. And whatever I want to redo or go back and reframe, I have an opportunity now before, who knows, right? So I think going through these kinds of moments with folks like you and us having these platforms to be able to talk is a great opportunity to sort of, like you guys do, sift through. Like, there was I wrote some notes because I have some follow-ups with you guys later on. Okay. So we'll get into some of these things. But anyways, before we do that, Mick, I don't want you to think you were forgotten. You're so patient. No. So patient.
You know what?
Raj is laughing. He's like, fuck, he is not. Also, yeah. Like, you don't even
because Mick once asked me, no, you know why I'm laughing? Because Mick once asked me, bruv, can you, do you develop patience, or is it something that you're born with?
Can you grow it? Can you grow it? Right? Yeah. Can you inherit it?
And I asked that in the midst of dealing with a kid crisis where both of them had thrown the dummy at the pram. But yeah, Raj, that was, yeah. But hey, it is what it is. I'm still working on it, Raj. Yeah, I mean, Raj, that was so. You know what? Me and Raj have this telepathic thing. Yeah. So if I had gone first, I would have said expectation as well. It's always cliche thing. No, but I've got another one. Actually, to be fair, there was a few.
Then let them out, man. Get them off your chest. Yeah, let's do it.
First one, which probably doesn't have many legs anyway, is definitely middle finger up to mechanics who just overcharge you when you've got your back against the wall and you need your car back, right?
Oh, yeah.
That is like, I just got stung. But hey, but actually one that's really close to me actually right now is middle finger up to the negative impact that social media has on people, like from kids, you know, watching, you know, thinking they have to be that person that they see on these ads, obviously, or, you know, or the men, obviously, that feel that they need to have a certain type of body to, you know, to be that, you know, to get further in life, etc. All the superficial things. I think it affects a lot of people, a few people that I know, to be fair, as well. And it just plays so many tricks on your mind, right? That I feel that, you know, people stop living. You know, does that make sense? They start living through this little tunnel, basically, where, and they just don't realize how much it's, you know, impacting their relationships with, you know, people, etc. But there's no one to, you know, it goes to another level each year, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From my perspective. But yeah, that was one that, you know, just what I'd mentioned as well.
You know, I appreciate that, because in some ways, like, I don't know, are we like around the same age?
Yeah, I'm 38.
Okay, yeah. Kind of similar-ish, right?
Yeah.
So like ish in our like upbringing, when we didn't have social media in the way we have it today. And I remember my time that living through social media was like, you know, the saying we have here is keeping up with the Joneses. So the status, you immigrate over and you got to keep up with the white people, but you also got to keep up with your people. And so you have these lovely, beautiful cars and big houses and nothing in the bank account. And you hear stories, people really suffering financially and all lots of other ways. And today it's like the social media thing, right? So if I'm on vacation, I got to like go sit on that boat and take a picture of myself, or I have to make sure I am posting as much as possible because I can't be forgotten. I exist. Yeah. So it's like kind of shifted with technology, but similar in that way of, yeah, you definitely lose yourself along the way. Even for us, like I don't know about you, but we have good content, great content, but what we have to do to get the followers. I had a consult the other day with someone and they're like, why are you not on TikTok? I'm like, fuck that shit, man. I'm like 42 years old. I can't be fucking that old and get on TikTok while my kids' fucking friends are on there looking at their like this, like they're like, well, you need to get on TikTok. Like if you need more follow, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. But it's just like this pressure, right? Of you have to. Yeah, you have to keep up. So that's a good one. So thank you for putting those middle fingers up to that. So thanks, guys. I have a similar one to Raj's. I'm not going to out the person I was talking to, but they'll know if they listen to this. My middle finger is okay. So I think it's frustrating when people use elaborate excuses when a simple no would suffice. So for example, right?
I hate that.
I'd be like, hey, Raj, can you go pick up that thing for me? And then you're like, fine. And then because you have these expectations and you want to please and you want to make sure you do this, you say yes, but you really can't because you have 1,000 things going on. And then when I follow up and I'm like, hey, Raj, did you go pick that thing up for me? You're like, well, because I had a headache and my kid, needed a diaper change and my wife had to do this and I just got in a fight with my boss. Like I'm like, I don't need that. I just want to know, did you do it or not, man? Right? But I feel like when you were talking, I was like, that's what it is. It goes along within the expectations because we feel we have to say yes, 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 yes. And then we can't ever deliver what we're saying yes to. And so anyways, I did ask this person, like, I'm like, just I appreciate if you can or you can't, but I would appreciate it way more if you could actually just be honest with, is this possible? Because it doesn't matter to me if you can do it or not. Just don't say yes if you can't. So anyways, that's and it's out. It's gone now. There you go.
Do you think that's just an expectation thing?
What do you mean?
Like that people have this difficulty in saying no to things. Do you think that it's an expectation that they have on themselves, or like why is that?
Well, one of my really good friends that's a therapist would say that we don't exercise our no muscle enough. And we need to exercise it more often. So I think it links with boundaries and saying no and the whole expectation piece. Boundaries can sometimes be not there's no line in the sand. There's no threshold. So my boundary for how much I'm willing to do for you is going to be different than your boundary for how much, and then sometimes we clash. Like I think sometimes what happens with that then is because I expect this from you, and that's not part of your expectation or boundary. Now we're having a bit of back and forth, right? Because I expect you to always pick up the phone when I call. And you are like, I don't fucking care to be around my phone all the time. Now, I'm projecting that on you. And I think all of it has to do with expectations, boundaries, and no. But I don't know. What do I know? I'm just a lady over here with a mic. So you tell me, what do you think? Because I feel like you're thinking of maybe there's something else to it.
I mean, I could personally, from my own experience, I've at least in like a work capacity, I've struggled with saying no. And I don't know whether this is something that is from upbringing or where it actually comes from. But in my mind, when I was thinking about it at work and someone would be asking me to do something, I would take me saying no as me not being able to deliver and not being capable of doing something. So in essence, what I'd essentially do is I'd just overcommit.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot. It happens a lot I work in tech, right? And it happens a lot in that industry. And you're seeing burnout happening to a lot of people, partly because of that reason, right? Because there is an expectation to kind of, be high performing. And if for whatever reason you don't have that no muscle developed, especially when you're later on in your career, you can really suffer.
You're suffering the whole time, I feel like. Sorry, you know what? I'm working on not cutting people off, so I apologize. Please keep going.
It's all right.
I hit myself.
It's all right. You know what? It's hard.
I'm the worst.
Hard to do that on a podcast.
Fuck.
Even when me and Mick are doing our episodes, we're like trying. the doing video helps, but it's still not the same as being in person.
Right?
I think there's like a slight delay.
Yeah, but you guys are co-hosts. You guys are my guests, and I'm like, shut up, let me keep talking here, right? Come on to my show to listen to me talk.
we're developing our podcast bedside manner, right?
Yeah, totally, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But at least I caught myself, so please carry on. And now, if you can remember your thought, that's because most times we forget our thought, right? That's why we interrupt. So hopefully you remembered what you were saying.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think in a personal capacity, I feel like saying no to me, it's something that I've definitely got better at. I feel actually, you know what? I've learned that from Mick, because for the longest time, Mick could not say no, right? He would say yes to everyone and everything. And then something just switched. And he was ruthless.
Oh.
Like, someone would be like, can I do this? Like, nah. He wouldn't even say no. He'd be like, nah.
Nah. I love it. I'm like, adopting that now. Nah.
It was so, but you know what? It's therapeutic. But when you say it, there's not even a negotiation. It's like, nah, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
So
I think, do you know what it is? I think so Kiran, like, naturally for me, I've always been a people pleaser, because my parents have always gone bent over backwards to do things for others. So I obviously deflected onto me as well. So, and what happened was later on in my life, but now I think in the last 5-6 years or something, what's happened is, you get married, you have kids, and then you have siblings as well. And those siblings don't really go to your parent, they go to you.
Yes.
They come to you for advice. And then you mentioned burnout, Raj, right? Messaging your siblings about how to, I don't know, change a light bulb, or how to get a mortgage, or those kind of things, because you've already been through it. That's taxing. That's taking up your time, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're never going to say no to those things, but there's I realize at a certain point, there's a certain amount of credit that you have on a daily basis, right? For patience. And now I realize how much time is worth, because if I'm doing those things, that means then I'm not with my kids. If it cuts into that, then you start becoming resentful. And I've gone through all of that as well, right? And I think Raj is the one person, Raj, my wife, those two people right there are people who I can say no to, because they won't get offended. I have always been. Do you ever feel that way? That if I say no to this person, they're gonna think bad of me, or they're not gonna call me. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but we put that on ourselves, because that's not necessarily the truth. That's the pleasing or the worrying, or I can't say no. All of that starts to. I had a therapist on recently talking about ADHD, but her own diagnosis of ADHD, and something that I thought was really interesting for her. Everyone's symptoms are different, but for her, she talked so much about how, from when your brain is developing a bit differently and you don't really know that, you start to mask and you start to focus on what everyone around you needs. And to me, in some ways, it's also people that experience trauma. It's a survival skill, right? So what I got to do? What do I got to do to take care of my environment to help me? And so people please, you do these things, and you get to your 30s and your 40s and you realize you've been suffering for so many years because you don't know what you want. You don't. And I think COVID was something that really pushed a lot of people to recognize that, like, oh shit, like, who am I? What do I want? What am I doing? All these kinds of things. And this therapist that came on, she's like, for her, the biggest thing was she did not know how to say no. And she was a pleaser. But then she would suffer in other parts of her life because she would say, yes, let me help you with this thing. And then yet her family or her kids or someone else would be suffering, because we always take away from the people, like our family. We don't take away from our place of work. We give there. We're getting paid, right? But at home, we tend to. So anyways, when you guys were talking about that, I was like, I was thinking about, sometimes we think about where is this complex thing about me coming from? And sometimes it is about how our brain develops. And we often, for some reason, won't go there. We think of other things. So I've been thinking a lot about that lately. My sister has been thinking about that a lot lately, because we're recognizing now, again, in our 40s, this kind of choice doesn't serve us anymore. Saying yes constantly isn't serving us. So what do I got to do now to be like Mick and exercise my no muscle more, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think the reason where I struggled the most was when I became the most resentful was when, when you've given everything for that person, right? But when you ask a favor on the other side and you think you have the expectation, and they say, oh no, I can't do it today but then you picked up that when they asked you for a favor, you dropped everything, you did it. But hey, that was my choice at the end of the day, right? That doesn't have to be their choice. So sometimes you're right. We kind of put that on ourselves.
But we hate them so much though, don't we? Even though it's our choice, we're like, next time I'm saying no to you too. And then they called and you're like, fine, I'll go pick up those gulab jammuns or whatever it is you need me to go pick up, right?
That's your walk over. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's just so interesting. Yeah. And I think having kids, probably you guys, I would imagine, like, I don't know, Raj, maybe you're seeing some of that already, but Mick, your kids are a little bit older, right? So just that, like, seeing your worst qualities first in your kid. So the thing you hate the most about yourself or your spouse, I don't know for you, but it was the first thing that I saw in my kid. And I was like, oh, you do this? Like, you know, and I'm sure my husband was like, oh, you do this, because it's the shit that we hate about each other. But it's like our kids make us so humble, and they sort of teach us to exercise some of these boundaries and these sorts of things, right? Because they're doing it. They're the ones that are teaching us how to, the whole pushing up against and the whole development. I think you guys call development stages something else. I was listening to your show and I forgot. What is it that you call?
Raj will know.
Child development. What was it called? So with an S?
The leaps.
Oh, the leaps. Yeah, the leaps. The leaps. I was like, oh yeah, exactly. Like the ages and stages or leaps or whatever. But okay, I'm going to ask you guys, otherwise I'm going to, again, take up like 100 hours. Can we go back to the beginning when you said that you talk a little bit more, Raj, like about the Bruv podcast, the Bruvcast? Where did it come from? You talked a little bit about it. I want to know, like, what was the story that inspired the start to this show?
Okay, where did we start? So I think there was an interest to do something like this for a while. And I've done some comedy things in the past. I've done a bit of stand-up, I've done improv, and I was trying to rope Mick into doing some of these things as well, like coming in to, do like a drop-in class for improv. It never worked out, and I think
he said no.
One of the main reasons, yeah, he did, and he didn't even say no. And the reason why I would ask him was because, okay, there's one thing that our wives can both attest to, is that when the two of us are in a room together, there's very little talking. Most of it is just giggling, and it's just silly. It's like jokes that we've had for like, it's just the same joke but told in a different way every single time we see each other. And
you can hear it on the show too. It's like,
yeah, right,
yeah. You guys speak the same language too, right?
Yeah, we speak the same language. Yeah. And I would tell Mick, I'd be like, bro, you're such a good storyteller, and you're actually really good at delivering jokes. Why don't you just come to improv? And then he would always be like, nah, ain't got time or whatever, right? And then nothing ever happened.
Right.
And then I felt like probably there was a few occasions where I floated the topic, or maybe we should do a podcast. And the thing to me that I thought would work with a podcast would be there's less pressure. We've spoken about this on one of the episodes around just stage fright. Mick sometimes he gets stage fright, which makes no sense because he's so confident the moment he's on the mic, right? So I was thinking to myself, if we do a podcast, there's no pressure.
Yeah.
So he's just going to be himself, and then we can actually do this because I know we can do something really cool.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the reasons for it. And then the second reason for it, or how it all fell into place, was I think Mick came over one time, and this was as I got into a serious relationship and was starting to kind of get close towards getting married. I was going through all kinds of things that I'd never been through in my life, because I was pretty much career driven for the bulk of my life. And when it came to kind of relationships and then getting married, there was a lot of things that I was very, very alien to me. So I'd talk to Mick because I'd feel like, oh, maybe this is just me. Like maybe, something weird's going on, or maybe I'm not processing this properly. So I'll be like, bruv, is this normal kind of arguments, these kind of arguments that you have with your partner? Is this normal? Is this an issue? It's like, bruv, that is my life. That is what I do every day. I'll tell you 6 stories right now with the exact same situation, and I will just be laughing. And that to me was like, I felt answer. So much better because I was like, you know what? I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And for me, the goal for me with this podcast is for others to feel that exact same way. Feel in their mind saying to themselves, oh, I'm not alone.
That's right.
Because a lot of us go through a lot of the same things, and we do not talk about it as much and as openly, especially men.
Oh, that's so well said. First of all, Mick, I'm really glad you responded in that way, that I have 6 stories immediately to share with you. And that's the way you talk about how you started this is a really good example of we're not all unique. I know we have unique situations as humans, but we only have so many personalities and so many life issues. And I think when we get in our own head, that's the piece where we go to is it's just me or no one's going to understand. And we've lost a lot of lives that I think it's sad because people make their choices, you know, with suicide and all that. But at the same time, there's so many stats out there that show how many people that talked or found a way to feel a connection. And often it's lack of connection. Because you can sit next to someone that you're connected to for an hour and not say a word and feel like you had the best conversation too. Like it doesn't have to be words, it's connection. And when you two get on and you ask each other some of your questions, or like even the IKEA story, who is the one that missed the beginning of their football game?
Mick.
Was that you, Mick? Okay. I just thought your story was adorable because every couple goes to IKEA to test the relationship, right? Because we all like, if you don't get in a fight, you probably that's a red flag in itself, I think. Something's wrong, break up right away. But we all have moments of the fight. And I'm just listening to the story because I'm like, yeah, I know this. Like the many men, my husband, one of them is, we'll just get it next time. We'll get it different. We'll come back. We'll come back. And the wife's like, fuck this shit. We're never coming back. I know you. I got you in the store to spend some money. I'm not leaving. I'm getting those plants and whatever, right? My point is like, it's a story. And you're right. You guys do have really nice ways of sharing stories, but there's so much in that story of other dudes and other women, other people listening and being like, oh yeah, okay, that's normal. We're in a healthy relationship because we fight in the middle of IKEA, you know, like we're not bad. Or because I think we also grow up being taught that life's got to be that Bollywood movie. And when it doesn't happen, man, are we disappointed, right? So your real life, we're not perfect stuff is so great. And I hope you guys keep doing that because I think it's really needed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like going to IKEA.
I was like, I'll just stop there because I'm like, I can keep going on and on. I don't want to fill your heads, right? I don't want you guys to walk out here being like, gosh, we're the best. Slow down, okay? Just chill for a second.
Yeah, it's just how many episodes? We've only done like 13
Yeah, you're
episodes.
13 or 12, right? Yeah. That's cool. But you guys also, I mean, before I ask about that, Mick, did you want to add to the story of how Bruvcast evolved?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think do you know what? It happened in so many different kind of segments as well. I think the first segment, like me and Raj have always had a good connection in terms of talking to each other, right? And for a large part of it, I think Raj used to come to me. I think there was a period where, you know, Raj basically, he used to come to me more than I used to go to him. And I used to be in that place where, hey, you know what? I'm untouchable. I'm bulletproof. Does that make sense? You're in that. And then, do you know what? Then I started to realize, you know, when you're in a space by yourself and you start thinking, okay, something's not right. You know, you're not untouchable. You have got insecurities, and you need to talk to someone about it. And you know, you can talk to your wife as well. But my wife was really obviously, I'd always go to Raj. There's no one else probably that I'd pretty much go to. You know, and she goes, you know, why don't you speak to him? You know, and one day I remember it fondly as well. We were going to watch a football game and I went to his place and we just started talking, and it was like as if he was my therapist at that point. And then he opened up to me and I opened up to him in that sense. But you know what? It was nice, like he said, that, okay, I'm not the only one going through these insecurities or this at this stage of my life. You know, I didn't feel great that he was going through, you know, do you understand? You don't want someone else to go through something. But
you feel like you can give back because you're in a different place, and Raj will also be able to give back. You know, like it's also nice to be able to celebrate the fact, like, haha, sucker, I'm not there anymore. You know, we're at a different leap. We've leaped in a different way in our relationship, or however you say that, right? But it's nice when we share these things. I think sometimes it's also recognizing, like, for me to talk to you about something that matters to me is a really nice high five to you, because you're thinking, gosh, you asked me for, like, we love to be asked for help, right? Like, maybe I don't want to be the one asking, but don't you love when someone comes to you and says, I really need your help. Please help me with this thing, right? And so I think sometimes we forget that sharing also means the other person's gaining something too. You know, if it can help you want to talk more, think of it, you're helping the other person out as well by saying this problem exists. So
It's showing you humanity, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
right?
what it is.
So the name, because it's bros, because bruv is bro is bruv, right?
Yeah, I think the name kind of came about because if you hear the two of us talk,
yes,
we say bruv more than we say any other word, right?
I'll be so honored
like,
if one day you start calling me bruv too. I feel like I'm part of a cool club.
You can be an honorary bruv, no problem.
You're definitely an honorary bruv.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. My armpits are sweating.
It's all right, bruv. So are mine.
Anyone that knows me well, please don't reach out and tell them how much of a goof I am, please.
So yeah, that's how the name came about. It was like, let's use that as the hook, Bruvcast. And one of my concerns with the name was that it may come across as it is only for men. But that is 100% not the case.
Don't you write
it's
like
Bruvcast.
by men for all or something like that?
Yeah, by Bruvs for all.
Yeah.
And we wanted to kind of add that into like all of our communications and everything, because I think one of the things that we definitely also want to highlight with what we're doing is what men are thinking. Because sometimes it's not clear for women what men are thinking, and it's vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So if we can help with some of that from our side through the podcast, then that'd be awesome.
Then that's a great, and like even for parents, my parents listen to every single one of my episodes, so I can't always talk shit about them. But I'm kidding. They're great. They're such big supporters. And then we like process afterwards. So I think even for the elder generation that want to get to know their kids in this generation and even maybe their grandkids, it's a great place to come in and hang out with you guys. For sisters, for cousins, like I think a lot of people can benefit from listening to both of you talk about everyday life issues. Like the handshake was so funny because I like you. Okay, my favorite thing though was the whole talk about the funerals. Was that you, Raj, or who was that?
Well, in the last, we've had two funerals. So
okay, the recent, the funerals and the which one was it? The funerals, the weddings. Or the handshake.
The greetings.
It was the short one. It was Mick. It was you helping Mick talk out all the thoughts that he had written out somewhere, right? Yes. And you're like, what are you doing with all this information, right? Yeah, it's so funny. And I just really, when you brought up the funerals thing, I thought, again, it's just a cute little example, but it opens a door to question, to be able to say, why do we do the things we do? And again, what part of the things we do serve us, help us, and what part of the things we do aren't really helping? Because we're, in our culture, the fear of new and change can be really difficult when our families fought so hard to keep whatever they could when they came to the Western countries. So they're just the best little stories that I feel like anyone can relate to and say, why do we have to do the things we do and people pass away? And I'm like, I start thinking about all these little things too. And it again opens a door to want to talk about it. How is it hearing someone listening to your episodes share a reflection? Like, what's it like for you hearing this?
Mick.
I think for me, it's one of those things where, it's like I'm only saying what others are thinking, right? At the end of the day, when you go, in these kind of situations, you're uncomfortable as it is, whether you're going to a wedding or you're going to a funeral, right? You're already on edge. I asked my brother-in-law, who basically said, you know what, I didn't really realize it, but yeah, that's how I feel. But you don't know you feel that way, on edge at a funeral because you think something's going to go wrong, or at a wedding, you meet someone, you're on edge already because you don't know who you're going to see there. You're going to see someone and they're going to ask you about the usual questions, like you said, right? Marriage or kids, or you've gained weight, or oh no, I'm going great. Does that make sense? Those things, all those different things, and he was like, it builds, and that's where the anxiety comes from. I didn't realize it because a wedding, you're going to celebrate two people getting married at the end of the day, but in Indian culture, I feel like you're actually going to show people how well you're doing in life as well. That's what it is at the end of the day. That's what I feel, because everyone just talks about when they say, how are you? Do you really care how I am, or do you want to just go up and tell me about how well you are?
Yeah, let's go to the bar and let me grab a drink, you grab one, and let me tell you how I'm doing over here. I think your show is really helpful in getting that out and helping people. Okay, it's time for you to start making decisions for yourself when you're an adult, right? How do we get there?
And don't care what people think at the end there, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to move away from that stigma about caring. I think sometimes we just care about too much of what people think at the end of the day, and that's what helps us the most. But yeah.
But when you need them, right? Where are they? I guess is a question, right? So I care so much about this person, and I'm going to see you another 10 years. Yeah, I can't even show you my truest self because I have to lie and say, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm going to school to be an engineer. Yeah, because, I'm sure people laughed at you, Raj, when they heard you did improv and stand up. And right, what kind of living is that, man? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the reason that this podcast has appeared so late in our lives is because it's taken that long to break free of our own expectations and the things that we feel like we should be doing.
Yeah.
And I think we've also mentioned this in one of our other episodes. I'm so grateful for the time in which I'm having kids, because that's not the case for them.
Yes.
And there's all the opportunities available. They can be whatever they want to be, and there's also role models that have done it and are continually doing it across all industries. And I think that is refreshing to see, because we definitely did not have that. We were growing up.
Well, when I was talking to Bhavin of Suche Art, he was saying the same thing. He's like, we would drive with putting our windows up when we would listen to our music. And now we have people from our communities, from lots of different minority communities on the radio. And you have all sorts of different people listening to these kinds of different languages. And you're right, like things have shifted. So there's lots more opportunity for the young people. And I think some of that has to do with us, again, working out some stuff from our past to be able to help create that, right? Like, I don't think you two would be doing this show if you had a lot of animosity or even like lack of self-awareness. You have to really know yourself to be able to get right behind a mic and talk about something. Are you guys, like, if you look back, if you, the you in the 20s, like if you were to go back and talk to 20-year-old you, like, what would you say to yourself?
I'd say believe in yourself more. Everything's going to be all right. Don't worry too much, but just be yourself and start saying nah at an early age.
I love it. Nah. Yeah, you need like a shirt or something. We need some merch with nah on it.
Yeah.
That's the key, right? Like, you don't really believe in yourself a whole lot, like that lack of confidence, imposter syndrome, all that stuff sort of catches up.
For sure.
What about for you, Raj? What would you say?
I would say do more arts stuff. So do more stand up, do improv. Like, it was something that I didn't really, even now, like I've done a couple of stand up sets. Shout out to my cousin Jay, because basically the beginning was me and him had this bet of like, let's just one day just do one stand up gig.
Oh my God.
And we wrote down,
there.
Well, that was it, right? So we wrote down our 4-minute little set, and I think it took like 6 months or something for us to find a date and eventually get enough courage to do it. And then we did it, and then it was fun. It was a great experience. And then I did a couple more after that, and then I started to do improv, and I did that for 3 or 4 years. And I really wish that I had done that in my 20s, because I think it would have just given me a lot more exposure to that world a lot earlier. I mean, I don't regret it completely. Like, I'm glad that at least I found it when I did, because I think that we wouldn't be here if that hadn't happened. So, but yeah, that would be one of the things that I would tell myself.
That's awesome. What about, you guys said you are 12, 13 episodes in, but I also, when we were talking, you had mentioned you guys sort of started this in January and have recently released episodes. So is there a story there about the timeline? Oh,
Mick, you can tell the story about the timeline.
Yeah, just life. We had, bless my wife, but basically we had massive renovation going on.
Oh, okay.
As you do. So we were living with my parents, so that in itself was crazy as well. But then when we moved back in, during that period of renovation and moving back in, I've got a sister who got engaged, and Nish, my wife, who's got a brother and sister, they both got engaged. So all three of them got engaged within a month of each other. And then the weddings, 2 of the weddings were, so one was in February, one was in March in Dubai in Mexico, and then the other one was just finished in July over here. So it's just been chaos. And kids, obviously.
Right.
So I just had a little one a bun on the oven. So obviously there was a little one on the way as well. So we managed to make it work the best we could, I think, and we continue to do so. And bless him, like, he's been soldiering through probably lack of sleep and editing and sending me edits.
He's rolling his eyes
week.
at you right now.
He is. He's
I'm
going to
just
teach me
kidding.
how to edit. That's going to be interesting. But yeah, that was the main story. It was just life getting in the way, right? We had a target of at least 10 episodes and see how it goes. But we managed to get them out there. And hopefully, and I'm sure looking forward to more to come, to be fair.
Yeah, well, I don't see why you won't have many more to come. I think you guys have a lot of things to talk about given the list you had the other day. So there's endless things to talk about. And I'll help now that I'm a Bruv. I can help add some things on there
Of
for
course.
you. Right?
Yeah.
You guys are so kind. But so 10 episodes in, 12 episodes in. Okay, you just released 13, I think you said. What are you thinking right now, 13 episodes in? Like, what's something that you're learning that you didn't know going into this?
I think one of the things that I'm learning is that it's important to just really ask anyone and everyone for feedback, because it's very rare that someone's going to reach out on social media and can give you that feedback. We have had some of that feedback, and thank you to all of those that have given it, because it really helps. It's also a motivation kick as well, because I feel like people are actually listening. It's not just going into the void.
Yeah.
So the feedback piece is definitely one of the learnings. And I think the format and how we're talking through it, for sure. The biggest thing of all is the tech and figuring out how the recording works, the microphone setup. We still, every time, before every episode, we're like, bruv, can you hear me? Can you hear me, bruv? Yeah?
Yeah.
It's all good, yeah?
Yeah.
I can't hear you. Stand closer to the mic. And it's just every time. And I'm so paranoid. We lost some episodes as well because the recordings just didn't work out for us. But I think now we're more confident with the setup. Yeah, I would say that those are the biggest learnings for me, at least so far.
You, Mick, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just from a personal level, it's just speaking wholeheartedly, being open as you can without trying to offend people, etc. But being open and honest, I think that's helping me in my usual life as well. Like, I'm just like an open book these days. You ask me a question, rather than thinking, oh, if I'm a know-it-all, then they're going to think I'm a know-it-all kind of thing, right? I think for people who don't know us, they're probably getting to know us through this. If you've ever judged us because you've only met us in a few times and maybe that meeting didn't go as planned, or or we gave up a different kind of perception of ourselves as well, that helps as well. I think that's important.
Right.
And I say that because our family just got bigger. So there's not enough time to have one-on-one time with everyone, So I feel what I've learned is this is bringing out a side of me, which probably people didn't expect, if that makes sense. And it's nice to express yourself. Raj, I'm a reserved person. Raj is he's always been the more flamboyant. He'll just
I love the word chosen to describe Raj right now. That's excellent.
Exactly. Flamboyant.
Perfect. You're my favorite person now, Raj. I love it. What a compliment to be called flamboyant. Good for you for pulling that off. Yeah, I love it.
I mean, Raj, if I asked you to dance right now, you'd probably do it.
What's your choice of music? What would be your choice of music?
Oh, I love everything. There's every genre under the sun. I'm really into drum and bass at the moment. I'm really enjoying Chasing Status and just those vibes. My wife is Punjabi, and I'm Gujarati. So there's a culture clash there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the podcast is now going to start to talking even more about what goes on with that. But I say that because my music has started to shift towards Punjab as well. So there's a lot more Punjabi vibes coming in, which is awesome. And,
are you loving AP Dylan? Are you loving the... Yeah, right?
Yeah, he's got a documentary out as well.
I know.
On Amazon, so I want to check that out.
But it was so cool because these boys really opened the door to what we were saying about not rolling our windows up when we're listening to our music, because you're like, I can relate to this. I can relate to what you're talking about. So it's really cool that they were able to, I don't know, update, the music that you would normally love dancing to at a party, but can't always have a club banger like that, right? You gotta, yeah. So I think that's cool. So I'm glad you're listening to Punjabi music. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Gagan's got a good influence on you. Which one of your wives is from the States? Who's married to the American?
That's me.
Oh, yeah.
It's double culture clash.
Yeah.
It's like British Gujarati marries American Punjabi. So
who are you guys even? How do you even do this?
I feel sorry for our child.
Honestly, your child's going to be very resilient. But like, do you feel being brown and raised, or would she say in America versus being brown and raised in the UK? Like, is there a difference in how we were brought up, or did we all get beat up the same and same kind of trauma?
I think there's a cultural difference for being British that has an influence beyond just what a British Asian is like as well. British people tend to be more reserved, stiff upper lip, and they don't always get to the point about things. They kind of want to like tiptoe around things, whereas Americans are a lot more direct in most cases. I don't want to overgeneralize, but
yeah.
I think in most cases there is a cultural difference there, and that does come across in the play out of our relationship for sure. And then there's a similar thing with Gujaratis and Punjabis, right? So Gujaratis are, Gagan always says, you guys are so like, even the way you speak is so gentle, even the language, like you say rotlis and tepla, all these like very cute words.
Yeah.
And we say roti and ganda.
Yeah, it was 100%. Yeah.
I think she also mentioned how we dance, right?
And we dance, yeah.
The Gujaratis are so light footed, and and I remember you saying the Punjabis are
full.
Yeah.
Jumping jacks on the dance floor, essentially, right? Yeah.
For our wedding, she'd be like, "Why do you dance with your hips? Stop using your hips. Use your shoulders, goddammit. Do some lunges and jumps." I was like, all right, man. I'm trying.
Yeah, man. Do some lunges.
Train the shoulders.
My culture, Gujaratis are not meant to use their shoulders like that, man.
It's the fingers that we use.
Yeah, with the little hips. Yeah, totally.
They can do this with fingers and hips, man.
Yeah. In fact, Mindy Kaling has a very particular dance that she always does on her shows. That's the little hip and the finger thing. Yeah, totally. That's so funny. Yeah. I was wondering because I was listening and I was like, I wasn't sure who. And I thought, there's got to be like, it's like being in an interracial relationship, I would imagine, marrying someone outside of your continent, let alone even your culture. And then, across the seas there, where raised probably very different. And it's interesting to hear you say American, and maybe it's North American. I don't know. I mean, the abrupt and the bluntness and whatnot, that's really interesting to hear as well, because I would say that there are parts of America that would definitely, the New Yorkers and all that sort of thing. But they're culturally, like the Punjabi culture versus some of the other cultures too. Like definitely we have a bit of a coarse way of being. But I always thought in the times that I visited over in your guys' hood, being Indian, the pride, I always found it to be overwhelming in like inspiring way in comparison to over here. I feel like, and I'm not from where you're from, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but there always seemed to be some space for the Indian culture living in London and living in the UK. And I always admired that, like having family out there, going and visiting and hearing with pride, because for my story and a lot of us growing up, that's not necessarily how it was. We've kind of had to, that's probably why we're so blunt, because we had to bust the door open. Somebody wasn't opening it for, we're like, fuck it, I'm gonna open this door. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the show. So what are the topics that you are hoping to get out that you haven't yet addressed? Like what are you like really excited or passionate to talk about?
Okay, so
are we giving Kiran exclusive here, yeah?
Oh yeah, because I'm just gonna take I'm gonna edit this part out. So I'll be like, up next on Middle Fingers Up. Join us on Why Bruv.
Join us with the fellow Bruvs. I don't know when this is gonna happen, but I know it is gonna happen. There is a lot of episodes where we're talking about our wives and we're complaining about our wives. And it's only fair to have them do the same. So I'm excited for whenever that is going to happen. I think that's definitely going to be a segment.
Will you let them host it without the two of you there? And the two of them kind of do a hostel takeover?
Oh, I don't know. That's actually a good idea.
Good idea. That's very good.
And I'll even throw another one out. Do it for like a anniversary episode, like episode 25, or like a milestone one or something upcoming that could be something cute for your listeners to get to know you guys through the wives. That would be a good one.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That'll be nice.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Producer credit over here.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Definitely going to get credit for that one.
There you go.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is that, you had on your first episode, you had your sister-in-law and your brother, right?
Yes.
Was any thought Is there anything linked to that, or is it just, you wanted to get it was always, your thing to get family on first, basically? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really nice question. That's a really good one. I picked them because they were part of that racial experience that I had that sort of like caused that shutdown. And a lot of the things that upset me had to do with the fact that they're younger. They're like about 10 years younger than me. And their generation is so immune to be treating that way. My sister and I were denied a drink at a very popular bar here. And I always like to say their name, the National. And bartender refused to serve us because he said of our color. And then he pointed afterwards at my brother. Wow. And yeah. He's like, I'm not serving you because of your color and because you people don't tip. And he pointed to my brother and his girlfriend and like a bunch of her friends, like they were just kind of ways off. So he assumed that we were together, even though we were. And he, kind of said all of you. And so when my sister and I had quite a reaction, all this. But my brother and their friends were like, well, let's just go somewhere else. And I'm like, what the fuck, you guys? And they're like, well, if we have something to say, then we'll never have a place to go. Because like we get treated this way all the time. So I did that episode with them, and my sister-in-law has always been a strong supporter of this. She and my husband were the ones that like, do this show. You can take it wherever you want, and wherever you start, it doesn't have to be where you keep going. You look back and you're like, we're not going to do that thing anymore that we started with, right? So
yeah, I think that's one thing that we said, like from the very, very first episode, we've said it, this is an experiment. I think we want to keep it true to that, which gives us freedom to go in like any direction, which we will do. So yeah, we definitely want to kind of keep that at the core.
Well, and you have so many directions, as we talked about today, that you can take. And you also recently, you were, kudos to both of you, because you're way quicker at this than I was, and I still haven't done this, is a whole anonymous platform. More people are going to be willing to give it if it's anonymous. We all know that. And I saw that you have that. And so my question was going to be about what kind of themes have come out of that platform and the kind of feedback you're getting.
We haven't got much traction on that anonymous form. In fact, we've got more people reaching out directly on Instagram and just sending us DMs, which is great. So we have been getting it from that. I don't know why the anonymous forums isn't working. Again, we're trying new things out, right? I think we're going to try and put like a question on posts now to see if that works. Or
even your stories and stuff like that. But if you're getting more traction, because that's what I'm getting to, is more through Instagram and emails. But the hard thing about anonymous stuff is like we're kind of encouraging people to come out and talk about the things on our mind. And while we want to have a space for people that maybe just aren't quite ready there, sometimes I struggle with and maybe because I worked in leadership for a while, it was always about being transparent with your staff. When you're talking about therapeutic stuff in life, it's very hard if we're skirting around the issue. And so that's part of why I toed with it. But I was curious. There's like 101 ways to go about it, right? So your feedback, I would imagine, will help sort of guide that and direct that. But I think that's great if people are just messaging you and saying, love this, didn't like this, do this, don't do that. So what kind of feedback are you hoping to get that you haven't gotten?
I think it would be nice, like suggestions, or even negative feedback. It would be nice to get some, not nice, but as in it'd be nice to see, any topic that we've probably talked about, which kind of causes a bit of a stir and a bit of debate, I guess, and I called it negative feedback, but I mean, I'm talking about feedback where, hey, well, me and Raj would be like, oh, we didn't think of it that way, did we? Actually, it opens up new horizons at the end of the day, right? For us as well, we're still learning. Just because we're doing a podcast doesn't mean we know it all, right? So it's nice to get, just like we're giving our views from a male perspective, it would be nice to get views from, our listeners, whether they're female or male, and to broaden our horizons as well, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, it's totally like a journal. It's like this process where you're learning as you go. And sometimes it feels like, oh, as a host, am I getting more out of this as my guest or the audience? Because there's no, like, I can't stop this until I'm done getting what I need out of it. And I don't know when that'll ever happen or if that will ever happen, because if we're always growing, there's always an opportunity to, like you said, to explore something, or we can look at the same painting and come out with such different perceptions. So like, why wouldn't we think that way about life and issues and experiences, right? And so you guys encouraging that, just start somewhere, I think is, again, a really nice message to your audience. And maybe like it'd be cool if you guys have guests eventually.
That would be great if and when we get to a point where we have people that are kind of messaging us that come on the pod. I do want to also give a shout out to the Coaches podcast, because my wife is an avid listener.
There you go. Look at that. Hey, yeah. Perfect.
Avid listener. And I remember when she was talking, like when I was talking about us doing a podcast, she was giving us tips from coaches.
Oh, cool.
Because she's literally like in hysterics listening to that. And obviously so they intersperse what they like talk about with Punjabi, right?
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand like all the words and everything.
But you get the gist, because I get the gist when you guys talk. I'm like, I know this is about the dad, you know, like you kind of can sort of pick up, right? From right. But there is a lot of the mother tongue in there. So that's cool. You should tell your wife that. She'll probably appreciate that she, you know, like I felt the influence. So that's awesome.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah.
I think people from your neck of the woods are really wanting and ready to listen. But I think when you look at like facts, right? Facts don't lie. It's like, okay, what do these numbers mean? And so do you guys ever go on and look without losing your mind, right? Because sometimes it can be discouraging, especially as we're starting out. But do you ever go back and look at your stats and sort of like, what are you gathering, if you do, in terms of themes or anything like that? What are you laughing at?
That's all I do.
That's all you do.
Every day I've put like, you know, those limits that you have on your phone of like, okay, Instagram will shut out after 5 more minutes. Spotify will shut out after 5 more minutes because I obsess and I'm like, okay, wait, where's the new listeners coming from? Where are the new comments? And then I'll take a screenshot and I'll send it to Mick. Today I sent Mick a message saying we've crossed 500 plays across all of our platforms.
Yes.
So I do obsess over it unhealthily at the moment. And it's just because there's a passion and it's nice to see something. Like it's nice to get that feedback. Yeah. But I think eventually there'll have to be like a point at which is like, okay, now let it just do its thing.
Oh, totally. And I think you're right. I think it's very helpful. But I also think you get to know the people that support you no matter what. It's always cool to see those numbers are always consistent in certain countries or certain parts of the world. And so you're like, okay, you know, like I'd like to reach out to you. Like I wish I could ask those folks some more questions, like why? What are you getting out of living in Australia or the UK, listening to someone here in this part of Canada, right? Or it's same for you. Like what am I getting out of listening to you? I think there's like a really cool story in there about how sometimes life issues are universal, and you know, for people that are open in all sorts of different perspectives, it connects you. When you look at how many countries around the world, don't you feel like it's like a little hug? It's like a connection of you're reaching out to that many people, you know? So, and you are blowing up. You guys are very humble. And I think that's kind. I'm learning a lot of humbleness from you, but you guys have to get ready for that. You're going to blow up. Like it's happening. It's going to happen. So there's no way around this not happening. Like honestly, like I don't like, what am I going to say? Listen, it's the truth. It's the truth.
I really appreciate it. I think when my wife listens to this, she's going to be like, did your head even fit outside that door?
Yeah. She's like, let me talk to Kiran and help her out. So, okay, I'm going to ask you guys if there is anything that you wish I did ask or that we did talk about, or an opportunity to talk about the show. I'll get you to drop your plug in a minute here, but anything that you wish did come up that didn't today?
Mick?
From my perspective, I think we covered a lot. I feel like there wasn't anything that, I think you've done so much homework. I feel like you know exactly.
Well, I know you guys now. I'm a fan.
Like every single corner, you know, and we can't, you know, thank you enough for obviously, you know, reaching out to us, obviously, and everything you've spoken about is exactly, you know, how we're trying to make a difference with our podcast, with the laughs, with the serious stuff. But yeah, so from my perspective, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I had no expectation.
Yeah,
you know,
I know. Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's fair. Yeah.
You know, Raj asked me before we jumped on this, you know, how are you feeling? Maybe because he knows I bug out over these kind of things. But I was all day, like, to be fair, like it was, you know what, we're going with the flow today.
Yeah.
And no, I think you done a great job in hosting us, and touching on all the topics you did. So I'm pretty content with it, if I'm honest.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think there's a lot of love, and it's like, reciprocated, because you guys are quick to want to come on. And I always value any guests that are like, let's do this, because you know what we're all working towards. And, it's like the end game. We're like Transformers. If there's more of us, right? Then that's what we're doing. And I've had really amazing local podcasts reach out to me when I literally was a minute in. I'm only 2 minutes in now. And they were so helpful, so inviting. And two things out of that. One was being South Asian. I can't say that I had really good interactions growing up with other brown people without there being competition. There was never space for you and I. It was always, I got to be better. And so I really appreciated how inviting they were. And the second part of that was like, this whole podcast world is so cool in that there's so much room, so much space, because there's a lot of ways, like we said, to look at things. So it shouldn't be about competition. It should be about, okay, how do we uplift each other? Because if somebody can get something out of your show, we're winning.
100%. I think it's not competition. It should be collaboration.
Yeah.
I feel like community that has kind of been, that I've discovered since starting the podcast and kind of like being so engaged like on social media, and just seeing how many other podcasts that there are out there, how many creators there are out there, how they all kind of know one another and help one another. It's really cool to just kind of see it and witness it. And now, with the likes of yourself even offering for us to come on your podcast, it was amazing. And I was like, oh my God, wow, this is the first time that we're kind of,
I popped your cherries.
Outside of the, it was amazing. Thank you. Thanks for popping the cherry for us. It was a very appreciated experience.
No problem, bruv.
But yeah, I think the only other thing that I would say is I want to kind of just thank all of the listeners, right? Listeners on this podcast, also on Bruvcast, giving someone an hour plus of your time every week is massive. It's a huge, even if you're like driving or you're commuting or you're cleaning,
even if it's your mom,
right?
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's an hour. Time is the most precious thing that you can give to someone. Thank you for those listening to this podcast, and also for those listening to Bruvcast. And me and Mick are going to really try and push the boundaries of what we deliver. And I think we have. There's been a few times with the last few episodes where we've been like, oh, is this a bit too edgy? Is this close to the grain? And I think you have to kind
like
of
changing nappies. Men changing nappies. I was like, okay, let's first of all, when we say nappies, we're saying diapers. And I'm like, what we need to talk about that. So I would love to bring my perspective on one day when we go back to that topic. Because I was like, why are we even talking about this? And also, now I'm just going to give you my 2 cents here. Is when I know some of this comes from, our dads were in that generation too, men changing in particular a girl's diaper. And I think sometimes what happens is like we get so caught in creating something that's not there. Like, this is a child, this is a baby that needs caretaking. And we have put something sexual or inappropriate or uncomfortable in our own heads. And like at the same time, it's like, we can't do that, because now we're making it like this is wrong. Like, who's going to take care of the baby's diaper, right? So now dad can't stay home and change, So to me, when I was listening to that, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And of course, everyone teach their own. Please, everyone don't hate me. But I'm just saying, like, we have to challenge that way of thinking, because I'm like, that's just not acceptable. We're better than that. And our men are better than that too. I just put our people on, like, I got high expectations for us, like us, like, you know what I mean? I have to fucking change my kids' poopy. Fuck that shit, man.
Everyone should.
That's really why I'm saying that. Yeah. My husband and I used to do with our little one, our first one, Xander. I'd be like, do you want mom to change your diaper, or do you want Papa to change it? Papa. Yeah. But anyways, that was my 2 cents. If that was okay or not, but. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we're trying to do with it, and talking about the things where even sometimes we're like, oh, shall I say? I think there was one in particular in the last episode that we had where I was talking about buying condoms.
Oh my gosh,
and I was
yeah.
like,
The 2-for-1 deal.
Shall I put this out there? Yeah.
Put it out there,
2-for-1 deal. And then Mick was like, it's up to you, bro. I think it was funny.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's not your ass on the line though, is it?
Yeah. You know, you have to look, it happens to people. And it's like what you said, like we're so awkward and uncomfortable, but yet what's the greater cause here? What are we doing it? We're doing it for health, you know, yet I have no problem going to the liquor store and buying a massive bottle of vodka, you know, like that's okay, but I can't go. You're right. I was listening to that and I was like, I appreciate that, because that I had a sex therapist on a tour in the beginning, and for the longest time it wasn't well received, and I got feedback from some people that didn't like it, and to me all press is good press. Like I think if you don't like something, it still evokes something, and I hope you tap into it and want to know why didn't I care for that, but why didn't I like that, right? And that's for you to do, not me. I'm just putting it out there. But now I'm like, I got to bring her back on, because that means that we need to maybe talk about it more. If we're like, whoa, what do you mean sex is this way? Or I don't know. I just think you guys are doing it too over there. And you know, it's just like you said, let's get a little controversial, right? And put it out there and see what people say. And the thing is, like you said, so many people out there are thinking same thing.
Yeah.
Now you just got to click and collect, like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the whole point of it, right? We're trying to eradicate all these stigmas that we probably grew up with. And this is the voice. Not everyone's going to agree with it, but at the end of the day, it gets people talking. And like you said, there's no such thing as bad press, right? In the day. And even if you help one person eradicate one of these thoughts out of their mind, then we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
We're making.
Yeah. Well said. Okay, so you guys my guests always get to do my work, and I always get them to do a call to action, and I forgot to tell you about that earlier. So I'm going to ask you guys about leaving our listeners with what's one thing, if there's only one thing they were going to take out of this episode, what would you hope they would go think about or do?
Damn, yeah, this was not on that long paragraph that you sent to us. It was like all of this information. I was like, oh wow, this is a lot of text. Maybe there's not going to be anything else uncovered, but oh no, there's this.
There's one more. Okay, so what is it?
Can I go?
Oh, look at that. Roger's like, please.
I think one thing, and this is for listeners and obviously podcasters as well who are Asian or anyone that's doing a podcast, you know, there's space for everyone. It's nice to build everyone up together, support each other as well. I think I would like people to take that away from here, you know, help each other rise up, because you know, like we touched on this before, our voice may not be for someone that's following us, but yours may, you know, does that make sense? So it's all about resonating with the person who's talking to you. And there's plenty of us out there. Well, I'm hoping there's going to be more and more of us out there, but I think right now there's more, you know, more of us out there right now doing this. And so I think that's something I definitely want people to take away from this, that, you know, Asians can work together. Yeah. We're not always trying to spit on each other or
that's right.
one up with it. So
whether we, you know, dance with shoulders or hips, it shouldn't matter, right? Exactly. Just all invited on that dance floor.
All dances were created equally.
That's right.
Exactly.
Did you want to add to that, Roger, or do you want to leave it at that? I'll give you an opportunity.
I will say the one thing I would want to leave the audience with is actually related to the nappies comment and feedback. I think everything begins with dialogue. If you don't necessarily agree with someone's point of view, it's worth having the conversation, and it's not easy. Sometimes it's very, very difficult, in fact. But that is the way forward. And then to underline everything, which is one of our kind of like, I don't know, one of our philosophies with the podcast, is find the funny. Every damn situation you are going to be in, there's going to be something funny, no matter how stressful it is or traumatic. There will be some random thing that will happen that is going to give you, it won't even make you smile in the moment. It won't. You might even just kind of ignore it.
Yeah.
But then years later or months later, you'll be like, that was fucking hilarious. So find the funny, because you know what? No one gets out alive.
Oh, it's so true. No well said. Well said. I like that. Nice. Find the funny. I think that's excellent. You guys are very funny. So I think that it's very easy to find the funny when we listen to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so for everyone else listening, just a reminder, these conversations are always door openers. So feel free to send us feedback about anything that you want to learn more about, or you have more follow-up questions. I'm going to ask both of you to drop your plug. So where can folks find you?
Bruvcast Pod on Instagram, and find us on Bruvcast on all of the streaming services. We should be on pretty much all of them. If you can't find us, then iTunes and Spotify.
Yeah, you guys are on all the places. Okay, great. So thank you again. I apologize that it's super late over there and you're still live and live in color. So I appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time. Anything else for you before we say bye?
Thank you for having us.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. Jeez,
really?
Raj, I'm like waiting for, hey, thanks, Kiran. Like, thanks, Mick, for saving the friggin' day there. Yeah.
You know what, right?
Oh my
This is one
gosh.
thing I'm gonna say this, right? You just sent a message saying we should do an episode, just saying. And I was like, I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, bruv, we've made it. Someone is actually asking us to appear on their podcast.
Yes.
This is incredible.
Yes.
So you know what? Thank you, because you didn't know anything about us, and you just reached out, and and here we are, having great conversation. I immediately listened to your episodes and was blown away just with the production. The intro, your intro music is amazing.
Oh,
that's the first thing I said. I was like, your intro music is amazing.
That's a shout out to DJ Heavy D, my cousin from Surrey. He created that one. He actually made me 2. And this one I picked.
That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I do. I'm sorry to put you on the spot though, Raj, but I really appreciated what you said. So thank you for that. From the minute I read your guys' name and looked you up, I loved you. I'm a forever fan, and hopefully we can lean in on each other to help each other out. And I think I'm excited to see where things go. And I really hope you do get the wives on. I think that's going to be a really cool episode. So I'm looking forward to that one already.
You know, the pause that we had when you asked us if we wanted to say anything else, that was just being cool. Inside, we were like,
oh yeah, good one. Yeah.
Right? We're playing it down.
Yeah, good cover up.
When my wife left the house today, she said, "Oh, good luck with your collab today." And I was like, "Oh." None of them said good luck to me when I've had an interview, and I was like, "Oh, this is a big deal."
And then you show up, and I'm like just swearing like the worst potty mouth. I'm so sorry. I usually start with, "Do you swear? Are you okay with it?" And I don't know, I felt very comfortable, and so my apologies if any of your folks are listening to all of my cussing, but what are you going to do?
No, it's great. It's great that you feel comfortable with us. That's what we like.
Yeah, man, because we're fucking Bruvs now.
We're Bruvs. We're Bruvs.
Yeah.
We're Bruvs.
Seriously, Bruvs. So come over to Canada and we'll, show you all the things we do. Yeah, we'll bruv it out here in Canada. Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.